Hey guys, how much money should you make at a coin show? Thanks to Eli for the question. Hey guys, I'm Ben the Coin Geek. Thanks for watching. Thanks for catching me here. If you don't know, we have subscriptions that you can click on and join us. Thank you for your support. You can also support us just by clicking on the like button and leaving some comments and things of that nature. And I'm always happy when you leave questions because I get a good question like this from Eli, who says, how much money should you make at a coin show? So I'm going to make a couple assumptions here, and I'm going to answer this question in a couple different ways. Of course, this question sounds like Eli, let's assume he's a young man who wants to become a coin dealer one day and wants to know what should he look at to try to figure out what you should make at a coin show. Now, there's a few different ways to look at this. One is very black and white, monetary, and one is a little bit more philosophical. And you guys probably know I tend to get on the philosophical side of things a little bit. So there's also a couple ways to look at this, and that is, are you a coin dealer who is going to a coin show just to walk the show? Or are you talking about setting up at a show and selling items? And those are actually two very, very different things. So let's talk a little bit about the different philosophies on just the profit side of things in making money, and also what it looks like at a coin show. And I'm going to use an analogy here that is going to make a lot of people mad who know how to either fish or hunt, because you're both going to think I'm an idiot. But one philosophy is a little bit more like fishing, which is to say, you know, I know you use specific lures and bait and stuff. What I'm going to say is that you put down your lines and then you catch what you catch, right? Whereas with hunting, you're going through the forest and there are lots of different things that you can shoot at, but you're not shooting at everything. You're just shooting at the one thing, right? And so this will vary depending oftentimes on whether or not you're set up at a show or you're walking a show. If you're set up at a show, oftentimes, you know, you make money on the buy, which means, you know, when things come to your table and you have an opportunity to purchase them, kind of regardless of what it is, you end up buying it, right? Now, I understand if you don't do any paper money whatsoever, maybe it's not a good idea to buy paper money, but the concept is that's a little bit more like fishing, where you're not really in control of what you're going to get, right? And this is generally true when you set up at a show anyway, where you don't know who's going to come in and see you, or who's going to catch your eye, or you're going to catch their eye at your table, and they're going to come and do business with you. A lot of that is really out of your control, right? Now, the hunting aspect's a little different, and that's to say, if you go to a show and you're not set up at a table and you're just walking the show to try to buy things to make money on, that's a little bit more like hunting. So I may take all my want lists with me and go and look and say, okay, I'm really looking for all these items, right? Just to fulfill want lists. That's a different type of, really a different way that you can look at going to a coin show and making money. So those are two different things entirely. Now, how much money you make when you're looking at want lists is going to depend on how many things you find. And if you're a hunter, you know that you can go hunting and not actually shoot anything, right? So you can go to a coin show and have a want list and have a hard time fulfilling it depending on the needs of your customer, okay? So those are the two sides, walking a show or setting up at a show. One you have a little bit more control over, generally speaking, than the other. Now, to the question of how much money should you make at a coin show, once again, we're going to use a little bit of both sides of the table. Now, walking a show, the philosophies here can be really different, right? So I don't generally look at it, how much money I should make or make at a coin show, and that's a little bit different than how a lot of people do things. People tend, I think, to fall kind of in some middle range where they have you know, an idea of, I got to make this much money. I got a buddy who's in business, and he says to me, if I don't make $2,000 a day, I lost money, right? And that's his philosophy on business. And I understand, and he's counting to some degree his overhead and things like that. But that's not really how I look at things, you know. And so your expectations that you set are really on you. What is your own time worth? You know, if you go to a coin show and you're a young kid and making $100 in a day is a good deal for you, then great. You made $100 in a day, right? If you're used to making a lot of money at your day job and you try to go to a show and you spend all day at a show, you set up, you buy, because a lot of guys at coin shows are vest pocket dealers, they're members of the coin club, and so maybe they're already making 35 or 40 bucks an hour as an engineer or something like that, and then they go set up at a coin show and they spend a couple $100 on the table, whatever their other expenses are, and so now they've already worked negative, right? It was only $2 to get into the show and walk it, by the way, so that's maybe your overhead's not as bad, but if you set up a show, you probably want to consider all those overhead costs, right? Because then you have to look at the stuff that you sell, and you might sell $1,000 worth of stuff, but how much money did you make? What was your cost into those items, right? So you could sell $1,000 worth of stuff and it actually not really be worth your time because you actually didn't make more than a couple $100 in profit on the items. Now, some of you believe that every coin dealer out there makes 5 times their money on everything they buy and sell. I generally think that that's not the case. Now, I know there's guys that happens to and for, and generally they're guys I don't do business with, but if you're out there and you're at a show, Eli, and you're setting up, you got to consider all of your expenses when you go into this stuff, right? You need to consider all of your expenses. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the intangibles here, though, because one of the things that you need to realize is that it is not necessarily about making the money. And what I mean by that is if you are walking a show and you're dealing with other dealers, or if you're set up at a show and you're dealing with other dealers and customers, part of what you're doing is building up your client base. Part of what you're doing is creating that synergy between people. You are finding out, hey, I know that this guy who I just met, Mr. Jones, I've got his number now, I know what he wants, and I'm pretty sure I can find that coin for him. And then the next time you get that coin in, or maybe another dealer has that coin, so you go over and you get the coin for him, and you make a few bucks real quick. Well, if you just walked down the road, bought a coin for $100 and sold it for 110, you made 10% on your money in 5 minutes. Now try to do that mathematically and philosophically against whatever people do today to make money. So you can see how there's lots of different layers to this question, and there's lots of different philosophies and ways to look at it. And so it depends on what you're doing. Are you walking a show? Are you set up at a show? What are you considering? Because to me, for example, I went to a show recently where I didn't set up at the show. I just walked the show. And honestly, I didn't buy a lot of stuff. And, I probably real profit after expenses of travel and things of that nature, maybe I made a couple $100. It was not the type of thing you think of as a coin dealer going to do to make money. But you know what? I had a great time. There's value in that. And I made a lot of connections, and there's a lot of value in that. And so those are the type of things that you also want to consider as you think about whether or not you're making money at a show. What is profit, right? So if you only look at an intangible of I've got to make $2,000 a day, otherwise I'm a loser, or you can say, hey, okay, I got exposure to a lot of new clients. I got exposure to a lot of new dealers. I paid for all my expenses. I made a few bucks, and I'm building something here. And that is, if you are a young person, or not a young person, but if you are someone who's trying to get into the trade, building relationships is extremely, extremely important. So how much money should you make at a coin show? Well, it's really up to you. It depends a little bit on how hard you work and grind and go after things, how many want lists you already have when you get there, whether you're setting up at a show or walking a show. But at the end of the day, realize, for my book, there's a whole lot more to it than just like the actual mathematical bottom line. All right, Eli, I hope that helps answer your question. Everyone, leave your comments down below. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Ben, the Coin Geek. You can subscribe by clicking on the owl button and watch more videos on the right side of the screen. Thanks.